Hey, what's up, guys? We're gonna do today a review or analysis of patch 1.08. Now that it's been out for a little bit, I had time to check out pretty much everything. I had time to try everything out, get a good feeling for all the major changes. And I want to do another one of these, showing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yet again, honestly, first I want to say patch 1.08 was ridiculously good. First of all, I mean, the biggest thing, the arena, this was pretty much what this update was all about. It was really mostly about the arena. It's nice that we got some balance changes, but the arena is absolutely fantastic. I just want to highlight how much 2v2s and 3v3s are so much fun in the arena. And I also want to highlight that the way they made duels in arena where you can't use your physic, but you start right next to each other, I actually like that. Whereas if you want to use your physic in duel, you can still do it, but you need to choose the other mode where there are some respawns. So I think to me, this all makes sense. I like the decisions that they took in that regard. To me, the decisions for the arena there is like, I think they really hit the nail for the arena, the Coliseum. It's so much fun. It's really nice. The only thing that they need to add for the arena is more maps, and not actually the same map three times, but some variety with some obstacles to prevent team matches and whatnot from becoming just a projectile spam fest. But to be honest, I'm confident that they're going to be adding more maps in the future. I think this is just a matter of time. So we're going to give them the the benefit of the doubt, the time it takes for them to come up with new maps and whatnot. But all in all, man, the arena is amazing. I only have good things to say about the arena. I'm having a blast with it, playing it pretty much every day. All right, let's get to the balance stuff though, because I think this is very important, because the more we go, the more we advance, the further we get along with Elden Ring, the less likely we are of getting, the next patch. Of course, there's still more patch that are going to be coming, but, patches like this are not indefinite. At some point, From Software is going to stop patching the game, and so at this point, it's primordial that we address all the major issues that are left to be fixed. And actually, good news, we've come a long way since the start of the game. Just to mention a few, we went from being unable to invade everywhere around the map. They added that feature after feedback, so now we're able to invade everywhere. Before that, we would never get like invasions like a few months back. So that was a major one. They nerf Bloodhound Step iframe to the point where we would become like invincible before that. Now in 1.08, let's start with that. A major fix. They finally addressed shield poking. Shield poking used to be absolutely overpowered, and there was little ways to go around it. With 1.07, they introduced new ways to guard break, but ultimately shield poking was still too strong. Although I have to say, with patch 1.08, shield poking is officially in a good place, and I think doesn't need to be touched anymore. So they finally hit the nail on shield poking. We like it where it is. I think it's in a good place. You should not feel bad anymore about using shield poke. If you want to use a shield, well, finally now is the time. You can use it. Try to push it to to the best of your ability, and you should not have to feel like you're cheating your opponent because shield poking does the work for you. So finally, I think it's in a good place. I think that's probably the best thing to start with, since it was a major change that we asked from day one. From the first moment we played this game, we automatically noticed that the fingerprint was too strong, but finally it's in a good state, so really happy about that. All right, let's go with another really good change. Man, they introduced a new viable weapon class, and I think it's crazy. I'm seeing some crazy comments here and there, like pure ignorance, complaining about fists being too strong. These short fists. My friends, rejoice that a new weapon class is now viable. That's exactly what we wanted. We wanted more weapon class to be on the spectrum of this can be used properly in the right hands against other good weapons. And fist weapons definitely fall in that category right now. I really do not think they are overpowered at all. I think they're in a good place. Honestly, we should rejoice when that stuff happens, when we bring a new weapon class to the pool of viable weapons. I think that's an important thing to mention. Now, as far as the damage goes, we'll see over time what kind of build people come up with as far as the damage is concerned, because a damage nerf is never really, it's never really too hard to do. But I want to talk about damage specifically though at the end of this vid, so we're gonna come back to that. Now, aside from the fist, a lot of weapons have been buffed, right? Another noticeable one that's had a really nice buff are sights. Sights are reapers, pretty much, right? So sights, which were viable before, they were not bad weapons before 1.06. 1.07 brought the poise damage of sights to a point where the weapon could not be tanked anymore. So that was a major buff to sights. Now that they increased the speed of the whole sight moveset, Sights is now in a place where it can actually compete with the very good weapons. So it's not OP either, but again, we brought a weapon that was, before viable, that started out pretty mediocre when the game came out, and we finally brought it up to a point where Sight can be competitive. So really happy now. That's 2 new weapon class that have been added to the pools of weapon that can now compete with better setups. So really happy about that. And on the same trend, when the game came out, Ultra Greatswords were very dominant, the Colossal Greatswords. After that, because of the community backlash, they brought it back down to a point of being really bad, honestly. And now they brought it back a little bit more to a point where it's now usable and viable. Now, can it compete with everything else like it was before? Absolutely not. It is nowhere near the state when it started, but I think it is a good thing, though, that they brought it back to a point where it's usable again. And the way they did it is they did not make the crouch poke faster, or I think maybe the crouch poke itself is like 1 frame faster, but it's very, very easy to reaction roll. What they mostly did that changed the weapon around is they increase instead the speed of the poke coming out of a roll or a quick step. So pretty much you can't have access to that speed from neutral. You need to start from a dodge Ash of War or from a roll. So that makes it so the Ultra Greatsword plays a little bit like it was in Dark Souls 3. So it's more balanced, yet it's still usable. You can start a mix-up from a quick step, a Bloodhound step, or a roll, something like that. I think you might as well. I think you might be able to do that from Raptors as well, but I'm not sure. So that's another good one. Now, as far as the nerfs, we got a reduced damage to Slicer. That was good. We also got some Moonveil adjustments. Moonveil, now the blast does not poise break every time, so that was a very, very good fix. And at the same time, they also increased the poise damage for the blade part of it. So not just a nerf on the Moonveil, an adjustment, a needed adjustment that we're really happy about. Those are pretty major nerfs that really push the game in the right direction. And then as far as the good stuff goes, I'm not going to be naming everything that the patch changed. I think there are some changes in the whole patch notes that are fairly not irrelevant, but not really worth going over. But a last good nerf that I want to go over is the Heavy Thrusting Sword combo. So they removed the combo for the Heavy Thrusting Sword by reducing the stun on the jumping attack. And ultimately, I think this is a good thing, but I want to use this positive to bring to our first negative. So I think a negative was to nerf the crouch attack for the Heavy Thrusting Sword, which was never regarded as a hard to dodge attack or a powerful attack, or anything that was remotely warranted a nerf. The weapon itself, the Heavy Thrusting Sword, was a top weapon. Now, can I say that it still is a top weapon? It's definitely still in a state where it can absolutely compete. There is no doubt about that. But another change that they made, they nerfed the poise damage pretty hard on it. So not only can you poise the Heavy Thrusting Sword now, but since it can't combo and can be poised, it definitely changes the place that the Heavy Thrusting Sword had in the hierarchy of best weapon. Now, the nerf overall to a weapon that was extremely powerful, but still makes it, the weapon is still strong, but it's nowhere near where it was. I think there's some good and some bad in that, in a sense that I don't think it deserved that heavy of a poise damage nerf, and I don't think it deserved the crouch attack nerf at all. Personally, I think a nerf to the combo from the jumping attack would have been enough, because we also had, I also forgot to mention that we also had a massive damage nerf to all trusting sword attacks. So all trusting damage got nerfed, like I think it was by something. Actually, I don't want to tell you any bad numbers, but the counter hit damage got nerfed. So all trusting weapons now do pretty much less damage on counter hit. So that's also kind of a soft nerf to or an indirect, not a soft nerf, it's significant. It's an indirect nerf to stuff like Great Lance, heavy trusting swords, rapiers, so pretty much all the weapon class that were dominant. So ultimately, the trusting damage counter hit nerf was really good and a good thing, but I think they still went a bit too hard on a few things here and there. So another one that I think they went too hard on is Flame of the Redmane. Now, I know what everyone is saying, like, oh, it was too strong in PvE, it broke every boss. Yeah, but right now it's too weak in PvE, first of all. And not only that, we have separate PvE and PvP balance scaling now. The two are not necessarily related to each other anymore. But the fact that they also nerfed Flame of the Redmane in PvP, it went from always poise breaking your opponent to now it does not poise break your opponent if your opponent has over 100 poise. And let me tell you, Flame of the Redmane is slow. It has slow startup, it travels slowly, and it really did not warrant a poise nerf, a poise damage nerf in PvP whatsoever. In PvE, yes, but it still got one that was a bit too harsh. And in PvP, it should not have had one in the first place. So in PvP, Flame of the Redmane should always poise break no matter what, because it's very slow, travels slowly. There's really no reason to use it if your opponent is going to be able to tank it, because there are better attacks that come out faster and are not going to be able to get poised through. So as far as other bad stuff, I mentioned this in the bad. It's good and bad. So they fixed the stamina crouch regen. Now, the reason I put it in bad instead of good is, well, let's start with the good side of fixing the stamina crouch regen. First of all, it feels better when you fight to not have to constantly crouch to regen your stam. It feels more appropriate for the game. That's one thing. And then it also indirectly nerfs some weapons that were inherently dominant. Like this is an indirect nerf to Great Lance crouch poking. This is an indirect nerf to Serpent Hunter crouch poking. Every weapon that were reliant on the crouch attack automatically gets indirectly nerfed by this, because they can't pressure indefinitely anymore by just repeating the crouch process to repeat the stamina. Now, the bad side of this is that because you don't regenerate your stamina when you're crouching, no matter which setup you're using, the way crouch regen was used prior to 1.08 was basically on the offensive. So, nerfing that favors passive players and takes away a massive tool from aggressive players. So the way the interaction worked before is you had someone aggressing that was regenerating their stam as they were aggressing, which put the player on the defensive in a bad spot where they were forced to dodge properly, and time their roll in order to get away from trouble. Whereas now they can sort of get away scot-free at some point because the person aggressing is going to run out of stamina, absolutely. Whereas before they were forced to have to time the dodges to get out of some pressure. Also, as far as crouch regen goes, there's one major downside that this brought, and this is where we get into the ugly stuff. So, the ugliest thing that changed in this patch is, for the first time in, as far as I know, honestly, probably Soul's history, you're gonna outrun Light Roll and Bloodhound Step are gonna outrun running. So actually, Bloodhound Step used to do that before the patch when the game came out, which is a big reason why we asked for a Bloodhound Step nerf. But light roll never used to do that. And let me explain. In Dark Souls 3, there was a glitch. We call it Fab glitch, where you, yeah, actually, this was in Elden Ring 2. You just spam one talisman or one ring to regen your stamina. So when someone kept panic rolling over and over, you would do that glitch to regenerate your stamina in order to keep up with the roll distance that light roll gave, because light rolling does give a faster travel speed than sprinting. So because of that, you were still able to catch up to people that spammed light roll because they couldn't be in their menu while they were spamming light roll. Same kind of deal happened here in Elden Ring prior to 1.08. When you had someone that panic rolled that kept spamming light roll, you were able to catch up to them because you could crouch stamina regen while running after them, whereas they could not be able to crouch stamina regen while spamming light roll. Like those two you're not able to do both of them at the same time. So eventually what happened is that the light roll is going to lose distance on you because they don't have infinite stamina, while on the other hand the person chasing them can regenerate their stamina as they're chasing. So again, this is to favor the aggressor for a fight to actually take place, because if that interaction doesn't happen, the person who's light rolling just gets away scot-free panic rolling no matter what. And this is a new problem we got introduced because now stamina crouch regen is not a thing anymore. For the first time, light rolling can just get away scot-free and is faster than sprinting over a large distance and practically over a short distance too. So we got to a point where light roll was borderline broken before the patch, and it was very, very hard to aggress, to now where you can light roll really, 2 or 3 times and the person sprinting might actually run out of stamina before you stop panic light rolling. So this is a huge problem. This is absolutely game breaking. And this also applies to Bloodhound Step, because Bloodhound Step also has big travel distance when dodging. So I think, it was borderline overpowered before 1.08, but because of the stamina crouch regen fix, this brought, the light roll and Bloodhound Step problem to a new level. It's brought Bloodhound Step closer to what it was at launch, and this made light rolling absolutely like way too strong. So this is where I want to go into a suggestion. I think, guys, the travel distance for light roll and Bloodhound Step needs to be decreased again. It doesn't, well, for light roll, it should always have been, a shorter distance, but Bloodhound Step is going to need another travel distance decrease as well as light roll. The game just cannot function that way. Let me tell you guys, you need to understand light rolling is too strong right now. There is absolutely no way to aggress light roll. Panic light rolling is faster than sprinting. You're never going to catch up to someone that light rolls 2 times if you did not catch the first one. And guess what? Absolutely what? Basically almost no weapons can actually catch light roll in the first roll anyway. Actually, I think right now, on top of my head, there's a single counter to light rolling, and that's free aiming with great bow. That's the only real counter that there is to light rolling at the moment. And even then, after a certain distance, you can reaction roll the great bow. So yeah, light rolling and Bloodhound Step are gonna need a real fix, because they are the ugly side of this patch that no one is talking about, because the interaction is a lot more complicated for your average player to understand. But this is pretty much the ugliest thing that came with this patch. But there's also 2 more ugly things that came in there. Although I say they're ugly, they're pretty intentional. I don't think From Software meant to do that. It's like the HUD broke in multiplayer. You can't see people when you're invading. I think it's also affected when you're blue and when you're co-oping. But yeah, I don't think this is going to be here to stay. I think this is going to be fixed soon in a hot fix. I really doubt that this is going to stay like that. And same thing for the new glitch that got introduced with crouch poking with great hammers and weapons that were clearly not intended to crouch poke. This again, I think was a side effect that came with the patch that was not intentional. So we put it in the ugly because obviously that's terrible, but at the same time, I am not too worried about that because it's likely going to change. Now, I hope you guys got some good information out of this. Again, I want to be clear here. Patch 1.08 was amazing. But it's important. We don't have too many patches left. It's important to get the important stuff fixed before they stop fixing the game. And at the moment, there are 2 things that I see that are problematic. It's light roll and Bloodhound Step. Those are the two things that should be a priority right now. Now, as far as the damage is concerned, I think there is one issue regarding the damage that is still untouched that needs to be addressed. And obviously, I'm talking about power stance weapon damage. So the other day I was doing 2v2 in the arena. We beat them, don't worry, we won. But one guy two-shot me still with katana jumping attack, you know. 2 jumping attack from katanas, dead. And it's not just katanas, obviously. 2 great lance attack, dead with the jumping attack. You know, curve sword, double spear, double straight sword, you name it. You know, there's a lot of power stance weapons that just plain do too much damage. Obviously, the great lance do too much damage. The double spears do too much damage. Power stance again. Double straight sword does crazy damage. You can get like 1000 damage on 1L1. Like, come on. Like, this needs to be addressed. Like, we need to get a damage nerf for power stance weapons specifically. I think this is the next big thing that needs to change regarding damage. Now, this is not necessarily related to this patch. This is pure feedback. But I think this is one of those changes that when it's done, we're going to look back and thank ourselves that we thought about giving this feedback before it was too late, because I think the weapons themselves specifically don't necessarily need to be nerfed too hard. And I'm thinking of the way straight swords have no recovery. I don't necessarily want this to change. The way great lance, you know, have a fast attack. I don't want this to change either. That would kill the weapon. I just think that nerfing the damage properly would take care of that. Same thing with the double spear. If you slow it down, if you slow down the double spear, you know, the weapon is useless. So we don't want weapons to be useless. We just want them to be balanced. And honestly, the biggest thing with these setups is really the kind of damage it outputs. So when you stop giving these weapons like crazy damage, you make it more viable. You make it more manageable while keeping them viable. So this is what I wanted to touch about the damage. Alright guys, thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this thoughtful analysis, and I'll catch you guys up next time. Take care.